Checking, check. Hello, everybody. Rebecca here. Hope you all are doing well. Welcome to the live stream. We have Broke Fishing, and we also have Rich Quake here today. Today is 12/7/2025. The time is 3:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Wanted to do this live stream as I have noted that for the past few months we have seen a lot of stuff going on with ICE, but if anybody remembers, a few months back, they put in a rule that anybody who is homeless is committing a felony or committing a crime and able to be arrested. Well, I've been looking through news and looking through stuff because I haven't been seeing a whole lot about the arrests that are being made and what's going on with the homeless people. And, all of us are a step away from being homeless. We're all a paycheck away from being homeless. We're all caught up in this in many ways. A lot of us are living month to month, paycheck to paycheck. And at any time, any of us could end up homeless. So it's not just about druggies being on the streets who are homeless. There are real families out there who are homeless. And there's real people out there trying to survive. But there was a news story that caught my attention within just the past day. And this news story is based on what's going on in Charlotte, where the first stabbing of a woman on a train on a bus had happened. There has also now been a homeless illegal immigrant who was deported from the U.S. twice, stabbed a man in the chest on the Chicago light rail just a few days ago. And this caught my attention because this was an illegal immigrant who had been deported twice from the United States. He was arrested after stabbing a man on the Chicago light rail just 4 months after the horrific Irina Zarutska killing on the bus. Oscar Salazano was arrested on charges of first-degree attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon causing serious injury, breaking and entering, carrying a concealed weapon, and being intoxicated and disruptive. According to court records, he's being held without bond. Salazarno, 33, allegedly attempted to kill a man on the Chicago, North Carolina light rail Friday around 5 p.m. with a large knife. The illegal immigrant is from Honduras, allegedly broke and entered into the light rail train while drunk and challenged his victim to a fight before stabbing him. He caused serious injuries. He was shouting and slurring his words per police records. The victim was hospitalized with serious injuries at Novant Health Presbyterian Hospital in stable condition. His address on court records matches a location of the roof above homeless shelter. Secretary of Homeland Security Tricia Lockwood said that Salazarno had been deported from the country twice before illegally returning to the country again for a third time. His criminal history included prior arrests for aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, destroying evidence, resisting arrest, using a false ID, and convictions for robbery and illegally reentry. The criminal alien issue, this criminal alien was issued a final order of removal by the immigration judge in 2018 and removed by the Trump administration on March 9th, 2018. He was apprehended illegally crossing the border again in 2021 and was again removed. He entered the country illegally for a third time at an unknown date and location. His vicious attempted murder comes just 4 months after the heinous killing of the 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee, Irina Zarutska. She was stabbed multiple times in August by a homeless career criminal on the Lynx Blue Line in Charlotte, after she fled her homeland for a safer life after the outbreak of Russian-Ukraine war. DeCarlos Brown Jr., 34, was identified as a subject and charged with that first-degree murder. The homeless schizophrenic was seen on surveillance footage unfolding a pocket knife and moved to plunge it into the innocent 23-year-old as she absent-mindedly stared at her phone in the seat in front of them. Brown Jr. was arrested in North Carolina at least 14 times since 2007 for crimes ranging from assault, firearms possession, to felony robbery and larceny. So that is what just happened here within the last day. Okay, so that is two illegal or one illegal immigrant who was arrested. The other was homeless. The other one was schizophrenic. Now, if you're looking at the state of North Carolina, if you think about a few years back, they closed the mental hospitals here in North Carolina. So they turned a lot of homeless, mentally ill people out onto the streets. However, the new order from the Trump administration regarding homelessness was that everybody who was homeless would be picked up, jailed, put into mental hospitals, okay, regardless of whether or not you were mentally ill or not. Okay, what I'm looking at basically, and what I'm not seeing enough news about, is homeless families, where they're being taken to, what programs are being opened to help these people, how they're getting them off the street. And I've noticed here in my town, especially, usually you would drive down the street and you'd see a homeless person standing in the middle of the road begging for money. You don't see it anymore. You'll see people that used to be by the Walmart. You're not seeing them anymore. These people have vanished. And I'm not seeing protests about helping the homeless. What I'm seeing is protests about ICE, but not protests about where the homeless people are being taken to. Nobody's asking the questions. Where are they going? What programs are being opened to help people? Broke, you have anything to say? Hello, Broke Fishing? Okay, Richard, you can talk. You have anything to say?
Well, here in Canada, it's a little bit different. Most of the homeless people here is because they got chased out or lost their money or whatever, and they had to become homeless. And they're usually around the shoreline and the wooded areas, or behind, like, they usually keep away from people. They got their own little communities, kind of thing. And there's probably a lot of drug use and probably a little bit of crime here and there. But these people are kind of keeping to themselves, away from humanity, or the rest of humanity. And but I see what's happening, and it's not good. Like, people are getting desperate and they're doing crazy things, and these illegals are not even supposed to be there. And why are they even there to be able to do something like that?
Right.
There should be more checks. There should be more. Everything should be on a, almost like you have to check in so often to find out whether you are who you are or not, kind of thing. Like, you should go through. We were talking about the cameras that spot everybody and the facial recognition. If that can't work the way they say it works, and they're supposed to update it since the 2019 there, 2020, they're supposed to update it, all that. Why can't they see who is supposed to be there and who's not?
Who knows? And that is a good question. You would think, with as much technology as they have these days, that they would be able to tell. And instead of, like, I mean, I've been watching some of these protests, and I'm for picking up the illegal immigrants. I am not for picking up people who are getting ready to go to court, to have their day in court. I'm not for that. Okay, I'm for picking the illegal immigrants who are dangerous to society. I am for them being arrested. Okay, and yes, you would think with as much face recognition and whatnot that would be easier. And I'm looking at some of these towns where they're actually driving into these towns, driving around these towns, and stopping and harassing just about anybody. You would think that if they're going to go to these cities and these towns, that they would know who they're there for, where they're at, and where to get them from. But
Have your ducks in a row, right?
instead of stopping everybody based on skin color, to ask them, are you an illegal immigrant?
Yeah.
I that's one of the reasons why I had a concern. My daughter, and a lot of people don't know this, my daughter looks Mexican, okay? And I'm worried about her living in the Charlotte area, okay? I was worrying about her being stopped and being questioned and whatnot, because what I'm seeing in some of these cases is that they're not just stopping the cars, they're pointing weapons at you, okay? They're pointing weapons at you, and asking you to identify yourself, which I think is actually against United States law. Okay? But it seems like there doesn't need to be a search warrant, and there doesn't need to be any what do you call it? The lot of them are using no search warrants. Okay? They're stopping
No
you, detaining
provocation
you,
either, right?
stopping you, detaining you. Some American people have been arrested. Okay? They've been arrested and their rights have been violated.
Yeah.
And I'm not for any of that.
No. That's why I say they should have their ducks in a row. If they know what they're doing, they should know what they're doing, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. If they're going to go to these towns and these cities and these places, they should know who they're there for, who they're there to pick up, who the illegal, dangerous criminals are, okay? And go and get them right immediately. Why go to, okay, I was watching a show today. I'm not going to mention any names. But they went to a church and cased the church today, okay? And this was in Minneapolis, okay? They were casing the church, and an old couple happened to have pulled in and had guns pointed at them, and were told basically that they needed to identify themselves or they would be arrested. This is an old couple. And they were like, they felt their rights were violated. Okay? But let's get back to the homeless issue here. All right? The homeless people, I'm not seeing their rights. Their rights are in a means being violated. I'm not seeing any information, okay? Like a governor is cracking down on Operation Safe leads to arrests of homeless camps. This was 4 days ago, okay? Efforts to clean up the state property in Oklahoma City continue under the governor's Operation Safe, all right? The initially spearheaded by governor in late October utilizes the Oklahoma Highway Patrol and Department of Transportation to remove homeless encampments from state-owned property like under overpasses. I can understand that. That's dangerous, all right? On Monday, OHP arrested 3 homeless individuals who refused to move off the state-owned property. All 3 were taken to the Oklahoma Detention Center, accused of using state property for purposes other than official business. In a statement, the governor's office said the arrest happened after previous efforts to connect the individuals with services and housing failed. The governor's office full statement can be read in this thing. However, what I'm looking at is you do have a lot of homeless people who don't want government assistance. They don't want government help. Where'd Broke go? And they don't want government assistance. They don't want government help. And they don't want to ask for anything. He says his mic's not working. He'll be right back. And so therefore, what we're looking at is you have a subset of homeless people who don't trust the government, don't trust the state, don't want to live under the rules, okay? Such as you must be in by 7 o'clock at night. You must obey the rules of the place that you're staying at. There's a lot of people who don't want to do that. Because why? They don't want to be under rule of thumb. I understand that, okay? A long time back, I was homeless, and I ended up staying at a homeless shelter, all right? You had to be in at 6 o'clock at night, okay? Here I was 20, I think I was 25 at the time, all right? You had to be in at 6 o'clock at night. So if you had a job, you couldn't have a job past 6 o'clock at night. Okay, you had to be in by 6. And if you didn't come in by 6, you were stuck out until the next day. All right, you couldn't come back into the homeless center until the next morning. So where were you sleeping? In your car? Hey, George, how are you doing? Nice to see Broke is back in chat. Broke, what's your opinion? Let's see if his microphone's working yet. Uh-oh. Broke must be having some issues. You there?
My mic working now?
Yes, your mic is working now. All right, give us your opinion and what you think, Broke.
All right, I got a friend who is a huge homeless advocate. Part of what's going on is our current administration removed a lot of funding for these shelters that were getting federal funding to help them. part of the other problem is they're increasing the rents, and they're literally taking people who have jobs and are barely making it by, living paycheck to paycheck, and they're pricing them out of their houses. And
Correct.
I get it with you. Not in all places. They're not rounding the homeless up like they are in other areas where I'm at, but in a lot of areas they are. And another big one is we have a lot of homeless veterans who not by their own doing have mental problems. But we have a lot of homeless veterans out there too, and there's no help for them. And I agree with you. Why are we not seeing protests about taking care of our citizens? But we're seeing protests about you can't be kicking that person out who shouldn't even be here, who has a violent past in their own country.
Yep.
Some of them, their own countries are looking for them.
Yeah, that's true. And
And some countries emptied their jails and said, go to the U.S. They want you.
yep. I
And,
mean
yeah,
that it's crazy. It's
there's
mixed up out
no
there.
one cure for the homeless problem. It's a big problem. And yes, years ago out here in Oregon, the mental health hospitals got shut down, and they kicked all those people. They're not crazy. Some of them are, but they're not all crazy. There's different levels of
Insanity.
mental instability, but they kicked all those people to the curb.
Yep. I mean that's something I've been thinking about. Why did they close all these mental hospitals where people were getting help off the streets and out of society so that they weren't harming other people or themselves? I mean, a lot of people they think about, oh, they can harm society, but people are forgetting about them harming themselves too. So in other words, what we said is we don't care about that subset of people. All right? What we care about is that they're not harming us, okay? But the point is when you put a crazy insane person out on the street, and we've all seen them walking up and down the street talking to themselves, and all of us, and I'm going to say it's all of us, we all feel nervous around them, okay? Why did they put them out on the streets? It was lack of funding. Okay, there are so many programs. I mean, if you talk about some of the fraud that's going on, that money could have been
That,
used to
there's
take
a
care of
big
those
problem
people.
with that too. Back in Georgia or whatever it is, there's a guy who had all this funding from the state and the city and all that to help homeless people. Yeah, he was helping himself to a new house and all this. He was defrauding Medicaid. He was getting those people to defraud Medicaid because he gives them a little bit of money. Uh, they just arrested him like a month and a half ago for
Yep,
they have a good case against him too. But the, the there's no one cure for it.
yep, that's true.
Then you add in some of these people who didn't go through the proper channels to be in the country, and we have all these young people protesting for things to go good for a society that has been at war with anybody that's from not them for centuries, decades. My whole lifetime, those people have been fighting with anybody not trying to help themselves. Then they voted in a terrorist group to lead themselves, and a deal was made. They couldn't even keep with that deal, and they started assassinating their own people in the streets. But that's more important than taking these young people don't see it these days that are protesting. How about you protesting about taking care of us Americans, and you think us first instead of every other country and what you think other countries are doing wrong against them? Why don't you
Right.
let them fight it out themselves? Let's not help either side. Let them fight it out themselves. Who cares what happens? Deal with our own country, because until we get everybody looking at this problem and we come up with it, part of it is the work ain't there like it used to be. There's a bunch of jobs that are gone.
Correct.
Uh, because hey, like they used to said when the first robotic in a piece of equipment was moved into the auto industry in Detroit. That was the downfall of the auto industry in Detroit.
Yeah, a lot of stuff is becoming AI related. Dennis, welcome to the chat. He says, "Get off the drugs. How much is drug related?" Well, when we're looking at the information coming from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, it's 18%. So that would be out of 100%
Not
of
everybody who's
that would be out
not
of
everybody
100%.
who's homeless is on drugs.
Right. When you're looking at what HUD says, it says 18% of adults experiencing homelessness on a single night in January 2024 were identified as having chronic SUD based on HUD's specific definition. So when we're looking at out of 100%, we're looking at only 18% of those people are drug users. So
Well, look,
what is the rest?
a really good example is Eugene, Oregon, and what they call the Highway 99 community. There's a bunch of people who were priced out of their rental, couldn't find another one, went and got an RV, have a job.
They're
job that
cracking
they're
down on
working
RVs
full
too.
time at does not pay good enough for them to go and get into a rental, because we have individuals who moved in and bought these homes.
Right.
Corporations have moved in and bought these homes, and the first thing they do is go, "Well, I got to raise the rent because I had to fix something on the property."
Well, something I want to talk about is what they're doing with actual home insurance. I've been talking to my sister who owns a house, right? Well, you know the stuff that's going on with the with getting medical insurance, okay? You know that went up threefold. But not only that happened, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance has also gone up. Like my sister was telling me she was paying $1,400 a month. Now they're paying $3,800. Okay,
Well,
that's just for rent for their owning their house per month.
I know 3 people that have told me as of January 1st they're going to be in violation of their lease because renters insurance has got up, and their life is fight between paying a bill or buying food.
Yep.
And it's winter time and the electric's gone up, and it's more important to have the electric on sometimes.
Yep, I'm
I
like
know
looking
people-
at that one too because I have renters insurance because we have to have it where we live at. Well, I was paying $25 a month, right? Now I'm paying $56 a month. That's how much mine went up. It doubled. Okay.
Yeah,
So
well,
I understand that.
And what did you used to do with that $25?
Probably used it for other bills.
Or on food?
Yep, or food. And now it's like
And the rent,
it's not just that rent's
rent-
going up double.
the biggest problem with all this that I hear from all the homeless people I talk to in my area is the price of rent, with the ones that aren't out there high, because you can tell if they're high on drugs, or you can tell if they're a little bit mental. You can tell. Well, what they say, once you're homeless for over a certain amount of time, you are mental. But that besides that point, the ones that I know, a guy has a job living in an RV down here along the I-5, can't afford the rent of the local area.
Right. Let me
They
go
pri-
back and
they
explain
Price
something real
him
quick.
out of his home.
Right. Let me explain something real quick. So what happened with me being homeless back in 20 and what was it, 19 something. Anyways, my kids were little at the time. We had just gotten out of the military. We moved to California and then moved from there to Washington State. When we got to Washington State, there was nowhere for us to stay at. Okay, so that's why we ended up in a homeless center. We ended up there for like 5 days until we were actually able to get an apartment. But the issue is when you're moving, you don't always have somewhere to go right away. So there is going to be a bit of homelessness of people that are moving as well. So we were military. And you know, who would have thought that we would have ended up in a homeless shelter for a week before we were able to get into a place? Because we had the credit, we had the money to do so, but it was a matter of waiting for these places to actually say, okay, we'll rent to you.
And the other one is for the military families. The military is supposed to have at least base housing for that family when they arrive.
Not always. That didn't
And
always happen.
they don't always have it.
Yep. In fact,
The
they would
guys
say they
getting
put you
out
in
of
hotels. They don't have those.
people, the people mustering out of the military. My brother, the gunny, he was until he got hurt, working with people coming out, transitioning it to helping them. Oh well, these skills apply to that job because military jobs, yeah, they tell you, oh, learn a job. The
Learn a new.
jobs, the jobs, civilian jobs and military jobs don't always mesh.
Right, right. I
Some of
mean,
those guys are having trouble finding jobs. Other ones, they just got out.
think
They
of it
don't
this
got a
way.
job yet.
My ex-husband was a ranger in the military. He was airborne. Okay,
Yeah,
used to go out there and drive the trucks. But when he got out, there was no job field that he was qualified to go into. So what he did is we got into an apartment. He went back to college and took computer classes so that he could actually get into a field that he wanted to be in. So it wasn't like they actually trained him for something before he got out. They told him, okay, take these courses and such so that you'll be ready to be in the outside world.
and
They
but
don't always give you what you need.
in that course, great for the military, has nothing to do with the civilian world.
You're
I got a
right.
buddy who's got a bunch of courses in the military. Not one of them transitions into the civilian field.
Yep. That's like
That's totally retrained.
that's like my daughter's father. He's now working for the US Postal Service, right? However, before he was in the military, he was training the military to be soldiers, right? So, how do you go from training the military to a different job? That is it's not that simple.
There's not a civilian job that a grunt is being trained for.
Yep.
And they don't think about that before these guys get out, before they muster them out because they don't want to be in anymore.
And one of the things I've been thinking about lately is what about the disabled people that are renting like me, okay? What happens when the rent goes well above what I can afford? Because I'm looking at this for this next year, all right? The government said that we were all going to get 56 extra dollars, right? I got 20. Okay? So that's what I'm looking at. My rent's going to go up at least another 100. All right? They are pricing me out of my home. Okay? So now I'm looking at things because until now I haven't like been depending on the system. All right? I've been depending on my SSDI to actually be able to pay my bills. But now what I'm looking at is the fact that with the rent prices going up, it's going well above that. So what's happening with all these other disabled people who have been paying their rent and now being priced out of their homes? What are they going to do? Stick them into asylums and stuff because, they're disabled? They're homeless?
Well, the biggest problem I see a big part of the problem is people being priced out of their homes, out of their apartments, out of where they were living.
Even out of their houses that they bought.
Oh yeah, well they shouldn't have gone. My grandmother and grandpa used to say, once you own a home, you don't go take loans on that home.
You're right.
That is a scam market designed to take your
But
home from you.
the issue is the disabled people who own their homes, the cost of rent of not rent, but the cost of insurance to own those homes has doubled and tripled.
Well, not only insurance, but the cost in a lot of state, you go buy that home, you own that home once or twice a year, you got to pay the federal government,
Yep. Where does
and
that
that's
come up from?
going, and those taxes are going up.
Yep. I think that older people who own their home should no longer have to pay a sales tax on their home. You own the home. It's like going to the store, buying a bag of bread. You pay the taxes once it's over with. Why is it now? Why is it that people who are buying homes, okay, are paying sales taxes every single year on a home that they own?
Well,
It
don't
makes no
forget when
sense.
you have that loaf of bread and you've consumed it, you have to pay taxes on flushing it, don't you?
You pay taxes on everything. I'm waiting for them to come up with a tax just to breathe air. That's, I
Don't
mean,
they
that
have
sounds
that?
funny, but I bet it will happen.
They have that. They have that. It's called the Clean Air Act, and we
Oh
actually
my
get
God.
taxed under the Clean Air Act. So yes, you are being taxed to breathe air.
And the air's dirty anyway, so
Well,
there is no clean air.
they have all these taxes. Let's take California as an example. Sorry, but there's something going on there for the past few days that most people don't know. They call it a radiation fog, but for all of us older people, Gen Xers, and maybe some of our kids, but Gen Xers and we know the word smog.
Yep,
They
smog.
have changed the word smog over the decades, unbeknownst to us not realizing it, to a radiation fog.
Yep, I've been seeing
And
that.
all it is smog, but that's a clean air tax. There's huge laws in California about clean air, and they tax people through the gas you buy and through other things for that clean air tax. How come they're having smog in those California valleys
Right.
if they
So
got all the stuff that's supposed to keep it from happening?
so I'm gonna read y'all something else real quick, and this was put out in June. Um, this is a little bit old, but it's homeless related arrest citations soared in these California cities after the Supreme Court case. Says homeless residents of some of California's biggest cities increasingly are facing criminal penalties for actions they take to survive on the street, according to a first of its kind Cal Matters analysis of data throughout the state. Saturday marks a 1 year anniversary of the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on Grants Pass versus Johnson, which upended California's homelessness strategy by allowing cities to enforce blanket bans on camping, even if no shelter beds are available. Immediately after the decision, unhoused Californians and people who helped them reported seeing an increase in enforcement. But Cal Matters reporting gleaned from more than 100 public records requests appears to be the first statewide effort to quantify that increase. Cal Matters analyzed data on arrests and citations for camping and other homelessness related offense for 2024, comparing the 6 months before the June 28 Supreme Court decision to the 6 months after. We found increases in cities throughout the state, even in those where local leaders said they didn't change their policy as a result of Grants Pass. Some of the statistics are in San Francisco, then Mayor London Breed promised to be very aggressive in moving encampments following the Grants Pass decision. She delivered. Arrests and citations, illegal lodging increased from 71 in the 6 months before the ruling to 427 in the 6 months, a 500% increase. Even though Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass spoke out against the Grants Pass decision, calling it disappointing and vowing to lead to housing instead of enforcement, homeless-related arrests increased 68% after the ruling. Citations and arrests doubled in San Diego, which also doubled the size of police teams that respond to homelessness. In Sacramento, the number of citations and arrests nearly tripled, from 96 in the 6 months before Grants Pass to 283 in the 6 months after. From January through May 2025, Sacramento police had already issued 844 citations and arrests, suggesting enforcement continues to trend upward. Stockton issued just 14 homelessness-related citations in the 6 months before the Grants Pass. In the 6 months after the ruling came out, that number jumped to 213. The ruling, which found that the city of Grants Pass, Oregon, did not violate the Constitution by banning encampments throughout the city when no shelter was available, accelerated to shift towards pro-enforcement approach to homelessness. Buoyed by voters fed up with encampments near their home, Governor Gavin Newsom used the opportunity to urge cities to ramp up enforcement and pass anti-camping ordinances. The people making the case for enforcement argue it's a type of tough love that's sometimes necessary to get people off the streets. If someone refuses multiple offers for help, the threat of arrest might finally make them say yes. But you know what I'm wondering? I'm not seeing anything on where they're actually sending people.
I can speak on the Grants Pass thing because I am in Oregon, and
right.
I have spoke highly of that ruling with our friends. We're in the 9th district. Everybody in the 9th district other districts and Supreme Court districts are going to start doing this because now there's a ruling in the Supreme Court, but they took it all the way to the Court of Appeals and lost. And it's expensive to fight these things in the courts. It's expensive. Somebody's got to pay that guy's time who's your mouthpiece for doing this. His time is worth money. And some of these Grant's past ruling was very, very bad. And we knew they were going to do this. And this is the problem that everybody's speaking about here. Yes, you had this ruling. Yes, you got all this. But where's the programs you're sending them to? They don't have any.
Right.
They don't have any of these transition shelters. They're non existent. And when the feds yanked the funding, they yanked those programs nationwide.
Yep.
And I really wish we were up here on a different platform to where I could get my buddies, Citizen Z over here, who is a big homeless advocate, him and his wife, Sis, before she walked on,
Right.
she volunteered every day. And they're big advocates against the homeless because he has more knowledge about what's going on from the losing the funding and these shelters losing their funding and these places losing their funding that are helping the homeless.
Yep.
We're losing those. I can't remember the number it is, but where he lives, I believe he said there's 5. I can think of 5 he's mentioned that were funded by federal money and they're gone.
Yep.
There's
I've been
a
hearing
few
that
that
too.
are by private donations and they're barely making it.
Yep, I've been hearing that as well. But
I mean,
the other side stated in many situations, people cited or arrested for homelessness related crimes are never charged or the charges are quickly dismissed. But the threat of an arrest can be just as disruptive as the arrest itself. People leave their campsites to avoid getting taken to jail, and in doing so, lose touch with the outreach workers trying to connect them with housing and other services. In a weird way, it undermines housing process to such an extent that you end up working for the homelessness and against the people who are experiencing homelessness. Some leaders are pushing back against the enforcement mindset. 2 Democrat Congress members introduced the Housing Not Handcuffs Act, which would prohibit federal agencies from punishing people for living outside if they have no other option.
well, and the big thing is they arrest these people. How much do you think? Okay, there's the time of the officer you sent over there. There's the time that he's getting paid. Some of them are salary, but you got to look at everybody by the hour. They have all the time of you send that officer there. There's the cost of sending the officer. That money could have been funneled into homeless programs. There's the cost of the vehicle they use to go over there, and it's sitting there running while he's dealing with the homeless guy or homeless person. I'm not going to put it to one gender. And then you have they take them down to the jail. Well, there's the cost of that person being in the jail. You have to feed them if they're sick. You have to give them medical. That's in the cost. That's been ruled by the Supreme Court. They have to do that stuff. You got that cost, all these costs of putting that homeless person in there for the judge to go, you had no reason to arrest this person. We are dismissing the charges. You let him go. There's the cost of the court for the judge to say, I have to let him go because you had no valid reason, legal reason to arrest them.
Yep.
They weren't doing nothing wrong, you know?
That's true.
And so they get kicked out. There's all that waste of money, and it's not a small amount. That money could have been better spent. Okay, we arrested 10 today. I released it 10 today. Do you know that's about $1,000 per person? They say.
And they could have spent that money on making sure that person was put into home.
They could have spent that money on making sure they acquire some of these houses. There's some big houses that get repossessed by the government and they go and sell them off. Why don't they keep that house and turn it into a homeless transition center?
Yep.
We have motels. Why don't the government spend that money on buying that old motel, fixing it up, and using it as a transition center, not a permanent home for these people, but a
Transition
transition.
center. Yep.
Why are they fighting? Why are they fighting what's called the tiny home communities that a lot of people wanted to, that were started, and some people want to start? You wouldn't believe how much government tape and how much it costs to start a tiny home community.
Yep. That reminds
Where,
me of what happened
where
with
the
Western North
person
Carolina.
works, where the person works through owning that time. It's not just given to them. They have to jump through hoops, and eventually they will own that tiny home, and you go start another community.
Yep.
But the, people don't give as much money to helping the people who are down and out as the, and that's why people become homeless, because of things beyond their control in a lot of.
I knew somebody one time that was homeless, and he had major amounts of money, right? Bounced from hotel to hotel, 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 right? Only thing that was stopping him from getting a house was his credit.
Yep.
That was the
And
only thing.
that's what those tiny home community, that's where those tiny home communities were aiming at, some of them, but the
Yep.
government fights them.
Yeah, they do. I don't know. I don't
You know,
understand it.
they were looking at, I know somebody who was going to come in with some other investors and start a tiny home community out east on the East Coast. And when they were started going through it, they were looking at just to get permitted and all that and get it started and not have every home there, but just to get it permitted and start it and jump through all the red tape, bring in the utilities, because you have to have utilities, and they charge a shitload to bring just putting telephone poles in and bringing the power off a block or two off of the power line that passes by on the street. It's like it's like $20,000-$30,000.
It's expensive.
Instead of those corporations go, okay, we see what you're doing, we like your plan, we're going to put this in for free.
Yep.
We'll bring in the power into the community for free, and when it gets hooked to the house, we won't charge a hookup fee. Everything has to be permitted. Everything has to be done. They were looking at so much money that they finally said, we can't afford to do it. And they were looking at a small 20 lot tiny home community where the person works, or those who, can afford to do it, monthly pay towards it, and it becomes your home in the end.
Right. What do you
When
think?
you're done.
What do you think
Do it.
would actually get the rents rates to go down? Because we're
It's
looking at
the
every year it goes up.
It's the corporations. We had two-story apartment communities built in Douglas County in the Roseburg, Oregon area. Before they were even finished, they were all rented out. All that housing, before the complexes were even done, they were rented out, and they were actually moving people in before they were completely done with the units.
Well, down the road from me, they were going to build a low income, what do you call it? A low income apartment complex, right? The people down that way that owned their houses, they fought against the city so that the city wouldn't build the housing there in that area. And I found that to be kind of disgusting because it would have been an apartment complex.
Well, that's the other thing. We're out of housing. Whether it be low income or it be regular income people, just to build an apartment. We need more apartment complexes. We need more homes built. We're out of housing in this country, and a lot of corporations have bought houses when people have died or people sell because they're moving somewhere else. A lot of these home sales are going to corporations that get homes like that and rent them out.
That's like my apartment complex. It
And
belongs to an overseas conglomeration.
they double the damn rent.
Yep.
They put the rent so high that people, and they require, you must earn 3 times the amount of rent. Who in the heck?
Who makes that kind of money?
makes that amount of money.
Yep.
Isn't there enough abandoned buildings out there on mothballs right now to be able to house most of the problem or most of
Well,
the issue right now?
okay, on that side, Richard, abandoned building. Before we can house, I'm going to use you as an example. Before I can house you, let's say me and Rebecca, we go and buy that abandoned building.
Mhm.
Let's say it's got 2 apartments. Before I can put you and somebody else in any of those apartments, I have to bring it up to a standard.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then if we're going to bring it up to a HUD standard, they want it like it's almost, HUD wants it like it's almost a damn brand new building.
Yep.
You got the cost of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And some people, okay, there's that abandoned building, but who actually owns it? How much is it to get it away from the person who's doing nothing with it? And then how much is it to bring it up to a standard just to where you're at the lowest standard of living?
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree with you. There's a ton of abandoned houses. There's a ton of abandoned buildings. There's all these old motels and all that. The old motels can be no longer a motel. Turn it into apartments. But how many of those motel rooms are actually what you would call studio apartments,
You're
where
right.
they have a kitchenette in them?
That's like we have a hotel that's downtown here, and it's called the King Charles, and it's gone through a lot of fights, auctions, everything else. Right? That place is huge, and the problem with it is taking like the owners to fix the place up costs millions. Right? They were talking at one point of turning that into a homeless, where homeless people would go and live. Right? Well, ended up being sold to somebody who has done nothing with it, and it's got well over 2,000 rooms. Okay, it's just sat there, disheveled, just sat there. So
Yeah,
they've
well,
done nothing
and the
with it.
longer it sits, the worse it gets. But
Yep.
the biggest point when you're trying to turn it into like the housing like that, you have to have it's got bathing facilities. You
Yep.
have to have cooking facilities, and 90% of the rooms in those old hotels have to be modified and a kitchenette put in.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do. You basically have to take 2 rooms and make them one to get a kitchen in it,
Yep.
Yep.
because there's not enough room in the average motel room to do that.
I stayed after my house got destroyed by a tornado back in 2000. I think it was 11. Um, I stayed in a hotel room with my 3 kids and myself, well, 4 at the time, and they had like a small kitchenette in there, 2 beds. Okay, we were half of us sleeping on the floor, and it was hell. It was literally hell. It was like stayed that place for 5 months before we could get back into our house.
Well, and that's the point. That one room with 2 beds, a small tiny kitchenette, which was what? Did it actually have a
No,
electric
just a
cooktop, or it was
microwave.
a
Just
microwave?
just a
So that's
microwave.
that's not a true kitchenette.
Nope. It was
And it's
just
got the world's smallest fridge in it.
yep,
It's got what's called a dorm room fridge,
yep.
if it's that size.
But I can't imagine putting a whole family into a room like that.
No, and you guys, honestly, you guys should have had 2 rooms.
Well, not according to the apartment, the place that we lived, and we paid
Yeah,
seven
well,
hundred and something dollars a month for it. It was ridiculous.
yeah, I know, and that it's a really hard part. There's no one fix all, cure all in the homeless situation. There's a lot of ideas that are very, very good ideas, but the people who are trying to do those things end up fighting red tape,
Yep.
like the tiny homes community. World's best ideas. There's some of them that have gotten through. They are working very, very well. But the red tape you got to jump through, and the counties don't want to go. Okay, we're going to waive our hundreds and hundreds of dollars fees. We're going to get you bring us plans. Architects, when you do that, you have to have an architect draw up your community. It has to be blueprinted.
Right.
Do you think he's free?
Nope.
Architects are expensive.
I mean, I
Most
was
architects, I mean, even if you got it all down to where everything was done, you got all the blueprints for what each home for each little home. Got to have a blueprint for that. Got to have a blueprint for the community. You'd have to get all these corporations to work together just to get that one community there. Even though the water company's going to profit in the end, the power company's going to profit in the end. The gas company's going to profit in the end. You can't get them to go in and bring in the facilities for free. And then they want thousands and thousands of dollars to bring that stuff in.
that's true. I
Instead
Not
of
to
was
mention,
I
here's
was
our
thinking,
idea, can we get it in? And then putting it in, knowing that every connection they put in is going to make them money.
something else I was thinking about was back when, remember when the hurricane happened here in western North Carolina and people were trying to get into apartments and trailers and tiny homes and whatnot on the land, right? A lot of those people went through a lot of hell staying in some of those situations that they went to. Like this guy put out his land and put houses on it, right? The people down the street didn't want them coming in and using their store because they were homeless. I I remember that, and I was remember thinking that that was one of the nastiest things that you could have done to people who just gone through having everything destroyed in their lives.
Well, it truly somebody should have gone down to that store and go ho. So if their home hadn't got destroyed, they'd still be able to come in your store.
I
They
know,
used
right?
to come in your store before their home got destroyed, but now their home got destroyed and they have to live in this tiny thing while they're waiting for the years it takes insurance to go, okay, we will rebuild your house. They're not allowed in the store.
Yep. I that was
And it
that was one
makes
of the
you
things they went to go
it
question
makes
the
you
store,
wonder
and they
who
wouldn't answer.
exactly owned that store, a corporation or a mom and pop.
I have no idea, but I remember that the article was done. It was on YouTube, and it was a whole thing. The guy was out there interviewing. He went to interview the store, and the store wouldn't talk to him.
you know what I find, a lot of these government things are happening and they're using these consultant firms and stuff like that. And that's one of the problems here in Canada. Why a lot of people started getting losing their homes and stuff is because uh, government should have boards that were geared for that sort of thing, but they were putting all this stuff out to consultant firms, getting big money, getting paid. It's supposed to be doing something, but they're doing nothing, getting paid big money to do it, and then people are suffering for it.
Yep. And like my apartment complex is owned by some conglomerate overseas. Okay, they raise
Yeah.
the rent and raise the rent and raise the rent. They're just greedy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a corporation. They incorporate it here in the United States, and they see that as we bought this place and we have to make back our money as fast as possible that we paid for that place.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what they do. But it's more ridiculous when you're looking at, okay, this place that I live at, the rent here, the average rent for a 2 bedroom, okay, is like $1,700 a month. All right, maybe more, depending on what apartment you have, because they have 3 bedrooms here. Okay, then
Which
you're
is
looking at,
outrageous.
yeah, they're outdated. I've lived in my apartment going on 14 years, right? Started off with paying $500 a month. I'm now paying 1,108, okay? And I told them, y'all didn't start raising my rent until 4 years ago. So per year I've gone up 100 and over. Okay?
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, you're charging me for an apartment that has not been updated, no new carpet, no new paint, no new nothing. But every year they want to raise my rent by $100. Okay? And I'm telling them, I told them in the office just this past week, you are outpacing me on what I can pay. That it's not like I'm getting more per month.
Yeah.
And the bad thing is truly they legally shouldn't have been allowed to do that. I mean, they put some laws in, and like out here in Oregon, there is a cap on how much you can raise rent per year on
There
somebody.
isn't here. There is no rent control here in North Carolina. A person who is renting a house or apartment can charge whatever they see fit, and there's nothing to stop them.
Yeah.
Nothing
And
to stop them. And I have even written the senator or the governor and told them, look, I don't understand why our state won't put it into there's a rent control, okay? Because some of these places aren't worth what you're paying for them,
no,
but
they're not.
they're just
And
not. And like I'm
they're
sitting
not.
here today and I'm thinking about the fact that I've asked them to come in and fix several things in my apartment over 30 days ago. They still haven't come to do it. So I'm starting to think, I was wondering if this place is starting to get ready to sell itself again. Okay? Because they do that. It's like every few years they sell the apartment complex to some other person. And then the rent goes up again. This place I've lived at has been sold 5 times since I've lived here. And they're not making it better. It's actually looking worse than it did when I moved in. And on top of that, I'm watching the neighbors that got people that are living here now that I wouldn't rent to. I'm starting to feel like I live on the bad side of town. I moved here in the beginning with safety on my mind. You know how many times I think I'm going to go buy myself a van, I'm going to take off and travel because I can't afford the rent here anymore, but I could sure afford a van and stop paying rent and live in a vehicle.
You could afford an RV, but there's also that. They're now putting in a lot of states
You can't
about,
live in an RV either.
You
yep.
got a trailer hitch on that thing of yours?
No, it doesn't
Oh,
have a
come
trailer
on,
hitch.
Richard.
I wouldn't trust that car.
Hey, Richard. She'd make it a block pulling a one axle trailer in the redheaded, the blue haired stepchild would go, I'm not working, take me to the repair place, I want to go see my buddy the repair guy.
I'm glad y'all know how my car is. Hey, I'm going to give a shout out. Anybody want to help out? I do have a PayPal. You can help me out with fixing this car. I owe $700 right now, and on top of that, Christmas is coming up, and if you'd like to help out with that, that would be great. I have sent out some emails today to people to ask for help. Please help if you can. Okay. So
Hey, if you can, right there, that's where right there. Oh, actually, right up there, Rebecca. Help us help her so we can see what the next problem's going to be because there won't be a problem till this problem gets gets partially paid for, and then we can see what the next problem's going to be. Yeah, it might cost us a little bit, but it's an ongoing saga. It's like a drama show. We can help her a little bit to help, up there. Rebecca, we can help her a little bit so we can see what the next problem's going to be in this adventure.
the Equinox Saga. I want to thank Brokefishing and Richard for standing by me and helping me out every time I've called them or let them know that something's happened with my car. They know the drama that I've been going through. So do other people. And I've been going through hell with this car. Every time I think that it's fixed, and then I'll be moving on to getting the converter fixed, and that'll be the last problem. Boom! Something else happens.
I've heard it said that.
What chapter are we at in the saga of the Equinox?
We're on the thermostat and sensor.
No, I mean, like what chapter? This like chapter 6?
I don't know. Let's see.
36.
It's been a year, so every 3 months is a new chapter.
3, 6, 9, 12. So 4. Oh, we're on like chapter 12.
I can name off all, and it's not just one part that goes bad at a time. It's got to be 2, so it comes in 2s.
Well, at least it's not coming in
Lord.
3s.
Oh God! It was first one was the 2 fans and the radiator. Then I had to replace the serpentine belt, the water pump, and the the lever thingy that holds the belt. Then it was a leak from back behind the water pump, so they had to pull everything off and replace the timing chain. and fix all of that and put new gasket in there. Then they then it was the other side of the car. I had to replace a gasket. Okay, and then it was back to another issue, and I forgot what that one was. But then we had to replace the thermostat and the sensor, and then in between all of that, I've replaced the bearings on the car for the wheels because they were falling apart. So yeah, this car, and I'm gonna say I know some of the reason why this car has had the issues it's had is because it was in New Jersey and it sat by the salt air. So some of it has been caused because of corrosion or rust. So they have gone through and fixed all the rust areas. Okay, so no leak now, as far as I can tell. The one thing that I've got to still work on is that catalytic converter, but right now I'm working on trying to pay off this debt I owe. So each time I have to do this, I go through a SEMA loan. And if anybody knows anything about a SEMA, it is like a finance. If you don't pay it within a certain amount of time, they can come take your parts off of your car. So I try to pay it off within 3 months because in those first 3 months, you don't have interest payments. But after 3 months, you have interest on it. So that has been my biggie. So right now, it's taken away from me enjoying the holiday season, going into the new year and being on my feet. It's actually putting me in a bind because my rent is about to go up too. So I am kind of screwed.
Yeah. And then that spoiled brat always demands to
Yeah,
have a
but
little attention done to it.
blue-headed stepchild. You know the jokes that I was making with you guys about this car.
It's a blue-haired stepchild, not a red-headed
It's like
one.
it's like a child that I adopted that that one of y'all said I should put up for adoption.
Chucky.
Yeah.
I think you got Chucky there.
Oh God. So, anyways, you guys, thank you.
Have you taken it to the Catholic priest yet and had him do a blessing and then run over to the other church and have him do a blessing? You know, run by all the religious people and have each one of them do a blessing on it. See if they can
No,
get that evil spirit out of it.
no, I hung a cross in it.
Yeah.
every
Oh,
time,
oh, oh!
every time I
And
go to
we
drive, I pray
we
no.
might need an exorcist too.
Every
Did his
time,
head spin around and spit out green pea soup?
no, but every time I drive now, I say a prayer. Oh
Right.
God. Anyways,
I'm glad you want to talk about this. We should do this subject again on like my channel, and we should
okay.
get Z over and get him to talk on what he knows and problems he sees and that fixes that he sees that they're fighting. That's the problem is people see fixes for this. People want to do stuff, but they get fought when they try to do these things.
Yep, and I think there needs to be, like there's protests against ICE going on, but I think there needs to be protests for this too, and people demanding that people, even though you are homeless, you do have rights, okay? And you have a right to not be considered a criminal because you're homeless. For
Well,
God's sake, like I said, everybody is one step away from being homeless right now because this world, this planet, okay, this where we live at, where we are in the United States, there are so many people that cannot afford to live anymore. People are so far above their means trying to use credit cards to try to pay their bills. Okay,
yeah,
so it's bad.
they have that. To me, that's the biggest problem I've seen. Is they have literally priced people out of their home. Not everybody who's homeless wants to be homeless. Not everybody's homeless because of something they did. Not everybody who's homeless is high on drugs.
What?
And they actually did a study. They find out. I think it's like every week you're homeless, you dip further into a mental stage where they
Yep.
can eventually, after a certain amount of time, they actually say you need mental
Mental health. Yep.
help.
I mean, I'm
Not
like thinking of something else here. When the military here in our town gets paid, right? And every year their pay goes up, okay? So their rent is paid through the military, right? No matter where they live at. But what they
if
look at is,
they're on the base living in military housing.
Yeah, but even off base, they get paid BAQ to live in an apartment. Okay, we did, and
But
what
that,
I'm looking at is
that
when that pay goes up and our Social Security goes up, it seems like they know your pay just went up, so we're going to take it from you. But it's not just that. You get the insurance company going, we know their pay just went up, let's take it from them. So everybody's trying to take something you don't have anymore because one person already took it, but all three other companies are going, I want it too.
well, the bad thing is that barracks pay doesn't always match the price of rent off base for military families. I come. My dad was career military, 1956 till 1977. He got out, went back civil service, doing the same thing he did, but in a he went back in at a higher position in a facility that I'm not allowed to talk about because of what his job was. But barracks pay what didn't always pay for off base. Well, back in the day, back when he was in 50s, 60s, 70s, barracks pay pretty much paid your rent. Now, with them $1,700, you know how much it is to get into a house for a two, four, three, 5 person family?
Yeah, it's expensive.
Yep.
I shared a room with my little brother or my older brother.
Back when I was married, we had a house on post, and we paid $967 a month. Now back then, that was 20 years ago. Okay, that was
Yeah,
expensive for a 3 bedroom, but it was on post, and the military took it out of our pay. Now, if you look now, their rent has gone up on post as well, but it's still not as much as what you're paying out here in the off post.
I know. And they don't have enough housing on the bases, so they have the military families looking off base. And
Yep.
there's some people that don't have to be in the barracks anymore, and the first thing they like to do is go, I'm getting out of the barracks. I'm allowed to get out of the barracks. I'm going to go rent me a place.
Yep.
I have a buddy who's in right now. He's been in for a while. He's not married. He's way younger than me. I met him when he came out of high school and went to work on our fire crew. He went in the United States Marine Corps. You know what he says?
What do you say?
I live in the barracks. I'm like, why do you live in the barracks? He's like, because I don't have to pay, and every single cent I make, I get free food at the chow hall. I get a free place to have all my stuff. I got every game system I want. When I have to get deployed, it goes into a storage. I pack everything up. It goes into a storage unit on the base where it's secured, not down in the civilian shit where they'll sneakily sell your shit. And he
Oh
goes,
God.
the money I make, I am putting half of it up for when I finally get out. I'm like, how long are you going to be in? He's like, as long as they'll let me,
Yep.
because my job does not. I look in the civilian world, my job does not match.
I know about those storage units selling your stuff and sitting there saying, "Oh, we never were in your unit." Why do you think they sell you their own locks? Because they have an extra key for it.
Yep. That's when you want to change the lock right away.
It's in the contract for some of those storage units. You're not allowed to add your own lock.
Yeah, they have to be able to access your storage unit in case there's a fire or flooding or any of that. But I do know that when I had my stuff in storage, I had stuff come up missing. And oh, nobody's been in there. Nobody's been in there. Well, how did it just walk through a wall? So yeah, I know about that.
Well, I had a friend. He was in a store, had his stuff in the storage unit, and we were in there one day, and we had shut the door because we were doing something that you couldn't have a bunch of light. We were checking his stuff. He didn't have his storage unit packed. It was more like an extra garage, workshop garage, storage garage for him.
Right.
And somebody poked their fucking head over the wall from the next unit.
Oh my God. Well, I've heard
He
about
moved,
people living in storage units.
he
So
moved he moved all he went and got a shed. He went and got a building for his own property the next week and moved all of his stuff out.
I've heard about people living in storage units lately too, because that's another thing that people have been doing that have been homeless. They've been renting storage units to live in. and they've been being kicked out or arrested.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're not supposed to live in them. It's in the contract. But
Yeah.
the problem comes back. One of the major problems is that you'll always have that person. I had a friend when we were growing up. You'll always have that person. We had an older friend. He didn't want to live in a house.
Right.
He had a little bit of a mental problem. He felt claustrophobic in a house. He lived in a tent in the wide open during the winter and slept outside in a hammock the rest of the time. He didn't want to be in a house. You will always have those people. But most people, there's a percentage that still have jobs. They can't afford the rent because they were priced out in their area and they don't make enough above what the monthly rent is to actually afford the place.
Yep.
Because it's not only the rent, 9 times out of 10, you have rent, you have power, you have water.
Right.
You need communications with your company, they have to have a way to get a hold of you. You have a phone bill.
That reminds me, a friend of mine owned a, what do you call it? A house down in Florida. It was like a halfway house, right? For people that were getting on their feet. And there was a what do you call it? A veteran living there, right? He wouldn't go in the house at all, and he had a hammock, and he stayed out back. And I asked her about it, and she said that he had been overseas and been serving, and he was in a building next to another building that was bombed, right? So from then on, he would never stay inside a building. So he was the same way as your friend. He did not want to
Oh,
be inside any
that
building.
that gave him PTSD,
Yep.
stress disorder.
Yep.
Scared to death because that building that was bombed next to him probably damaged part of the building he was in, and he's like, "Oh, screw this! I'm safer sleeping out here in the." If he was in a war zone, he probably felt safer sleeping out there in the foxhole or the
Yep.
bunker.
Yep. That's what she told me is he didn't feel safe being inside a building at all. He would get his food at the back door, but he would not come in.
And he was probably mustered out because of that.
Well, she let him stay there, I guess, until they closed the place because that was one of the things Florida did was started closing some of the halfway houses.
Well, and that's it. You're fighting state bureaucracy. You're fighting the corporations. If you want to build a tiny home community, some of these counties have gone in and made laws in their counties ordinances where you can't have a tiny home community. A house must be uh, you have a certain amount of land and all this, and
So,
there's no one cure all.
right. Richard, what do
And
y'all do about,
we're never going to get every single person off the street.
right? Richard, what do y'all do about homelessness there in Canada?
Well, like I was saying earlier, most of the ones around here, they usually camp out around the shoreline, up in the bushes and off into like the wooded areas, and they kind of stay hidden.
Yeah, but what help do you guys have for them to try for the ones that want to transition out of doing that?
Well, there's government funding for all kinds of things, but you have to look into that, and you have to sign up for like welfare or you know there is places where they can go, and most of these people are like on some form of welfare or whatever, and they're getting some money, but it's not enough to keep them going because the places have sold out, like you said earlier, to these major corporations, and then they usually tender to people that are rich, and they get a little bit more money, so they rent to these people like doctors and whatever that come foreigners, foreign doctors, foreign workers and stuff that get and the other people are kind of left to fend for themselves, sort of. And sad, but it's true. They can get help, but it's not enough. Not enough to get them back into a house or apartment or anything. So if you have a place, you want to try to fight tooth and nail to keep that place, right?
Right.
Uh,
It's rough, man. I'll tell you what. I mean, the thing is though that I've noticed, and that's why I wanted to talk about this today, is I have noticed that our homeless population that I'd seen here in Fayetteville is missing. Okay,
Yeah,
I
well, where'd they all go?
that's
Did
what
they
I'm
put
wondering.
did they put them on buses and send them to Portland, Oregon? What did they do with them?
That's what I'd like to know. And it's
And
like there's
because
not any news coming out.
and because they're homeless with not a lot of friends,
People don't know where they went.
you wouldn't believe how many people stop talking to you when you become homeless.
Yep, that
One of my
happens.
buddies mentioned that when he was homeless for a while, he said there's very few of us that actually checked on him or talked to him. I'm like, what do you mean? I haven't even known where you've been.
Yeah, that happens. They lose contact with family. They lose contact with friends. A lot of them can't afford a cell phone, so how are they going to stay in contact? You know. And a lot of people don't think about the old fashioned way of writing a letter, but then again, if you're homeless, you're not going to be able to afford that letter and those stamps.
You know,
Then
the
you
Homeless
have
with
then
government.
you have then you have homeless people who are actually working jobs and still
Yep,
homeless.
that's the one thing that is a problem with in the Eugene Highway 99 community, RV community, is a lot of them were priced out and couldn't get another rental, so they went and bought an RV.
Yep. I think that, one of the things that they ought to do is maybe cities could buy up land for people to put their RVs on so that they can work and save their money up to afford life. I
Yeah,
mean,
but then they have to put in
arresting
some
people
kind
for
of
that is
plumbing or
ridiculous.
whatever and electricity and all that.
And then you're fighting the corporations about bringing in the facilities because you can't just have an RV parked on a piece of property if it can't dump its tank.
But my thing here is what they done with saying that even if you own your own private house, a person cannot stay in your backyard in tent. They cannot stay in your yard in an RV. And I think,
Wow.
if you own your own home, why would they be telling you who can stay on your property?
Well, what if your kid wanted to go out and tent in the backyard for the night? Are they
No
not allowed to
longer
do it?
allowed.
Ah,
No
well, I
longer.
know
I
they're
was
trying to
reading
destroy
I was
nature.
reading those I was reading those new laws, and that's the things that went into effect. No camping is allowed anymore. If you have
Well,
your
that's not
own
even.
home, you're not allowed to have somebody else stay in a trailer or in an RV on your property.
Wow.
That grants pass law, it opened up, it got it for for what they call publicly owned property,
Yep.
because I don't like to say it's owned by a city or whatever. It's publicly owned. We all own it, but that grants pass law made it illegal to be camped out, and they consider staying in an RV camping on that public property. And
There's
that
not enough places to go
really,
camping either.
I understand why they did it. They were having a problem, why they fought that so hard. But on the other part, it actually went far beyond its intention.
Yes.
And now they are using it down there in California. Now they're using it, starting to use it up in Washington. They're using it over in Idaho, you know. And if you do find a place to be in an RV like a campground, you have a 14-day limit. You must move. You must move off district. If it's the U.S. Forest Service, you have to move off the district, and that's usually a 20 to 30-mile move.
Wow. It's crazy. There's,
I mean, the best idea I did here was the tiny home communities. And it's a great idea, and it is working in some areas. But when you come down to the thing that stopped the people, I know two different groups that were going to do that in two different areas. And the thing that stopped them wasn't the cost of the property. It was the cost of how much the electrical company in the area wanted to bring power in and underground or in telephone poles. It's how much they wanted to bring in power for what the planned community was going to be. It was the water, the public water, the publicly owned, because we all own the if you're in a city and you live in that city, you own that. You are a member owner of that water system operated by the city. They wanted a shitload to bring it in, not just the cost of materials, but they want way too much to bring it in, and it was like it killed both of them. Both those ideas were going to provide not as quite a bit, but at on both, I know one for sure. At the end of their thing, you were buying the piece of property from them.
Right. So let me give
Tiny
you two
gone.
pieces of information here. Back in June 17th, 2025, well, actually, sorry, it was September 30th, 2025. Our county, where I live at, launched the Homeless and Prevention Program, right? And it's something that they give you up to 3 months of rent, security deposit coverage, and up to $500 in utility assistance, transportation to work or medical appointments, and up to 7 nights in a motel if no other shelters available. Here, to qualify, residents must meet a low to moderate income threshold of $42,000 or less per year, right? The pilot program is a critical step in addressing the immediate needs of the most vulnerable residents by offering targeted, flexible support that can help individuals stabilize their living situations and work towards long term housing solutions, right? Residents on this program must be referred through the coordinated entry, the county's centralized intake system for homelessness services. The pilot program is part of a broader effort by Cumberland County to reduce homelessness and improve access to essential services. And the Board of Commissioners approved a $250,000 program in August 2025, right? So that's one of the programs that they came up with. But on the other hand, when you have the Salvation Army, guess what? The Salvation Army closed its homeless shelter in April of 2025. So now you don't have a homeless shelter because the homeless shelter shut down. It closed. So that is one of the things, and now they're actually talking about what they're going to do because there's a concern now with the winter weather that is approached, and still a lot of people, they say, are living on the street. They're saying rising concerns about homeless community in Cumberland County could reach freezing, right? According to Cumberland County, there are at least 300 homeless people, including children, in the Fayetteville area. The Community Awareness Alliance of Fayetteville held a news conference Monday to voice the concerns. The worst concern is people dying because it's really cold, people sleeping outside in the cold, and more deaths that they're going to have. Cornerstone Christian Empowerment Center is open for only 50 people, right? So that's a place that only has beds for 50 people out of that 300. And they're saying that they're looking into providing more white flag shelters. Currently, there is no 24-hour shelter in Fayetteville. So the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners broke ground on a new shelter last year, but the actual construction never started. The county is now considering the location for the shelter. So they haven't even started on a new shelter. They just broke ground for it.
They didn't break down ground if they're actually looking for where they're going to put it. Break
Yeah.
ground means that you have this land is where this is
Yeah,
going.
that's what they said. They said that this news article says that they broke ground on a new shelter, but the actual construction never started. The county is now reconsidering the location for the shelter. So why break ground on something, bought something through the county, owns it, but now they're not going to put a structure on it?
Because they were made an offer for that piece of property by a
Probably.
corporation.
Probably. So that's the news that I have from my area. Yes? Sure. So, no, I don't, but I'll take one. So, that's the news from my area. So, if you're looking at homeless people, they're saying there's over 300 people here, including children, that are homeless, with only 50 beds for the homeless. So, it makes me wonder, where are all the homeless people at? Because I haven't seen any of them. Like, I used to see them, they would be on the bus benches. They'd sleep on the bus bench, or you would see them under the thank you, baby. Or you would see them under the bridge down here. They'd be out there panhandling, Or you'd see them on the corners and they'd be panhandling. Or you'd see them maybe somebody with a dog and you could tell that they were homeless because they had a big rucksack. Now you don't see anybody, and I've just been wondering where in the heck did they go? I mean,
That
I know there's some hiding spots, but I ain't seen any of them.
it's a big problem. There's no one cure all, and we'll never get everybody off the streets. But as long as these corporations make it harder for people in these counties and our government make it harder for people to come in and do these areas, one of the biggest problem is the housing, the amount of housing. It's a problem nationwide, and that people are being priced out of their houses because of the lack of housing. If you have an overabundance of something, people don't get to charge as much. If you know you don't have that overabundance, there is none of that, people know they can charge more.
Yep. Because they know that you need somewhere to live at, they'll charge you out of your house and home.
And they've actually made it to where the average working person at the minimum wage for the area cannot afford a house. They price the rent up above that person or that family being able to afford that dwelling.
Yep, they become greedy.
And a lot of it you find out it ends up being corporations. Like you said, yours is owned by some offshore company.
Yep.
I personally believe that we should not have corporations from other countries owning property in this country.
You're right.
Japan don't allow it. If you're not of Japanese descent, you don't get to own property. There's a bunch of countries where foreign don't get to own the ground. They can rent a building there. They can rent the area and build a building on it, but they don't own it.
You're right. I don't know why the United States allows other countries to buy our property and our land.
And then they lock America, like your place. I'm sorry, that's outrageous. You should not be paying that for something that 10 years ago was 500 and now they want 12.
Yeah. It's going up and up and up and up.
There's a point
where you can no longer afford it.
There's a point where your rent does not meet the building does not meet the standard of the rent you are requiring.
You know, this building I live in is built back in the 70s. So it's my age. It's over 50 years old. And what I've noticed with most of the apartments is they came in, they redid them, they redid the carpeting, they redid everything, right? Including the kitchens and stuff. My apartment has never been updated, okay? And I was talking to the office about that, and I told them, I said, I don't have a nice new updated apartment that you should be charging me that amount for. And they're like, well, everybody's going up the same amount this next year. And I'm like, this is crazy.
And they'll get away with it.
I'm paying almost what a 2-bedroom apartment here goes for that's been updated and refurbished. And I told the lady, I said, this might be my last year here.
If you can find something somewhere, I mean, are you you might have to try to move out of the area.
I might. I'm pretty sure there are other states.
Now, what gets me in
got less than this.
In 2008, when we were living in Georgia, I was making quite a bit at where I found a job at. It was getting through the hoops that these places wanted you to jump through for a $600 house.
Oh, jeez. Well, you know what? Nobody can afford 3 times the amount of rent. I mean, if I was to try to rent a place today, and they tell me we need you to pay 3 times to be making 3 times the amount of rent, I'd be homeless because I don't make 3 times the amount of rent. Back then, when I moved in here, I did. I had a really good job. I was making $900 a week before I actually was not able to work anymore. So if you're looking at it this way, I dropped to half of the amount I was making back then. But now they let you move in. It's not just that. They also check your credit score.
Oh, not just your credit score.
Oh, it's 3 times the amount of rent, and then you got to pay the amount of rent for a deposit. First, last month's deposit.
First and last, and then you got to guarantee the utilities before they actually let you move in.
You know what else? I like the way that they added on where I live at. They added on a fee to be able to use the amenities. Okay, so I was laughing about that because I don't go swimming. I don't use the workout room, right? And I don't use their laundry room or their other facilities that they have. But yet I'm paying for them. And there's no way to get out of it even though I don't use them because everybody has to pay it.
Was their pool actually past the pool
Their
testing
pool is
test?
never open. I don't know. In the years that I've lived here, the pool has always been under inspection, always being looked at. There's always something going on, and it's never open. And if it is open, it's open for like a week. And then, oops, it's closed because we have to fix it again.
Well,
So,
you
yeah, it's not
charge
worth it.
everybody here enough to use that for to use this stuff, and here's the problem: take that money you charge a month and put it into that. So I actually,
It's crazy. It's just crazy. But, anyways, you guys, thanks for a great update today, for hanging out and talking about this because it's been bothering me. You know, I've been checking the news and looking for news, and everything I'm seeing is on the ice raids that are going on. But I don't see anybody really out there on the ground, boots on the ground, figuring out what's going on with the homeless people.
well,
And
I
I've been
do.
looking
We
at that.
do know people who are boots on the ground with the homeless program, but the problem is
To help
they're
the
not.
homeless people are getting in trouble for that too. Think about it. You're not allowed to buy food for a homeless person anymore. That's another one. In some places, it's become against the law for
To feed
places
it.
to actually feed a homeless person. Remember that stuff with the churches that were getting in trouble for giving out food?
They're called pop-up kitchens,
Yep.
and yes,
They
that
used to
you
have
have
they used to
if
have
you're
one in downtown for the homeless people. I haven't seen one down there in years now.
because you have your kitchen has to be inspected to meet restaurant standards,
Yep. But that's
whether
one
it's
of
a
the things I
trailer
noticed they
or a
don't have.
building.
Anyways, you guys, thank you for being here today. I appreciate you. Anything that y'all would like to say before I close?
Just be nice to everybody that you come across. Try to do something. If you can't give them money or can't give them food, give them money, and hopefully they go spend it on food. You know, treat people the way you want to be treated, and just be nice to everybody that you can. You know, it's a small world, and everybody needs to get along. You know, there's too many people fighting, and everybody just needs to start getting along. You
This
know.
country is so divided. That is one of the things I was thinking about. You know, a lot of us say we're Christian, right? God said, when you feed those, you feed me. When you house those, you house me. When you give to those, you give to me. For the least of those, you do for me. Okay? And a lot of people have forgotten that.
Yeah. All right. All I'd like to say is, hey, winter solstice party, broke fishing. You can find my schedule on Rumble, and I'm doing something on the 10th. I think it is on the 10th or something. I have something scheduled. Check out Broke Fishing Rumble, Broke Fishing YouTube. We're gonna have a winter solstice party December 21st. Come join in. It'll be lots of fun.
I think I did that right.
I don't know. I haven't
I
looked
tried
at
to
what
get
the
I tried to
for
get
the-
Nightbot to post your channel. Maybe I did it
let's
wrong.
let's see if the bot will do it.
Let me see. I think it's supposed to be broke.
I'm waiting for my screen to refresh over there, but I don't see it.
Okay, it posted it. That is Broke Fishing's live stream channel. So for the 10th, you guys, he will have a live stream up. Richard, you going to be live next Saturday? And for y'all that don't know, Richard did a live stream last night on his channel. We were all there. So I'm doing mine on Sundays now.
Quite possibly I'll be doing one on Saturday. I should schedule one just in case anyway, right?
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, the 10th.
And we need to, you're right, Brooke, we need to do this live stream on your channel and get other people involved in it.
Over in the green room, right?
Yep, Green Room. You guys know that's RUMBLE.
It may say green room, but it's spelled rumble.
Don't want to get in trouble with YouTube for saying the wrong name or posting the wrong thing.
Yeah.
They don't like Rumble, you guys.
They advertise Rumble. You know, that's what gets me is they advertise the hell. They take money and advertise for Rumble, but
Yeah.
they don't like Rumble.
That's right. All right, you guys, thank you for being here today. Thank you for being on the stream. Broke Fishing, George Mitchell, Nightbot, and everybody else who's checked in today. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your opinions, your thoughts. Any questions that you have anytime that we do a live stream, please feel free to post them in the chat so that we can interact with you, answer your questions, and read your comments. Anyways, you guys, much love, God bless, and we will